Spirit of life, God of many names, mystery beyond naming. We gather in thanks for this good day. It's good to be joined in a community of support and questioning, in spirit, if not in body. Several in our community are sick or suffering this week. May healing and hope be theirs. Others have great cause for celebration. May their joy be so great that it spills out into a world in need. In our gratitude and in our wondering, we pause to lift up the silent prayers of our own hearts and to find a quiet, still peace within. Some people will tell you that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Some paths of philosophy tell us that the body is something to be controlled by the mind. Some of our bodies are sources of shame or sin. The path of Epicureanism, on the other hand, tells us that the delights of the world are the path to true happiness. There are a lot of different opinions about the connection between body and soul. One thing is clear, though, you don't get to the sacred without paying attention to the body. With every passing year, I'm more firmly convinced that attending to our bodies is a necessary aspect to seeking the sacred. There are other paths, and I'll touch on a couple of those in a minute, but I really think it begins with this structure of bones, muscle, and tissue that we call home. Our bodies, our flesh, our hands, eyes, ears, nose, mouths. Our bodies are the only tool we have to experience the world. They connect us with beauty and with love. We encounter our friends and our partners through our bodies. We see and feel the beauty of nature with our bodies. Our hands and our voices allow us to create art and to care for other people. And our brains, well, they may be one of the greatest miracles of the universe. They open to us a kaleidoscope of emotions and creativity. They allow us to appreciate and to co-create with the universe. More than books or traditions, these bodies that each of us have at every moment are the first step in searching for the sacred. In our Wednesday meditation group, several of us have been amazed to learn how much just breathing and paying attention to our breath can be a source of calm and comfort in a terribly hectic time. We can use our breath as a simple point of focus when our mind is whirling with anxieties or with excitement. There's no app to buy or subscription or class to attend. The simplest of meditation options is with us in every moment of every day. And if we choose to pay attention to our bodies for just a moment, a world of possibilities opens. A single conscious breath can open a whole new dimension to just about every situation in life. In our liberal tradition, we invest heavily in intellectual pursuits. We consider access to education a basic right. To a certain degree, we consider learning a responsibility to participate as an informed citizen in community. Every Sunday, in our unison affirmation, we covenant to seek truth and love. I have a proposition that I'm still working out. You may disagree. It seems to me that our commitment to seeking truth isn't just an intellectual pursuit. Our commitment to expanding knowledge should be applied equally to appreciating information accessed from our bodies. Whether that's pleasure and pain or arousal, whether it's noticing when our heart races in fear or anticipation, noticing when we hold our breath, or instinctively withdraw a hand or reach out to embrace. We Unitarian Universalists have little tolerance for what I call willful ignorance, intentionally ignoring facts. We see such behavior as irresponsible and self-destructive. Might we one day hold a similar expectation for maintaining a conscious relationship with our bodies and the information they provide? In each of us, in our bodies, rests a library of information and opportunities for growth waiting to be explored. Searching for the sacred through your body may seem a little unusual to you. I have another suggestion that's maybe even more unusual to a lot of UUs. For a few weeks, I have participated in a UU Bible study on Zoom. It was marketed as a Bible study for skeptics. In the first session, it seemed that all the participants were in a similar boat. We didn't know quite what to expect from the experience, and we weren't even quite sure why we had shown up in the first place. So we talked about what the Bible and Bible study has to offer to Unitarian Universalists. It was a great conversation. On one level, it helped me see what this ancient text has to offer us today, even as skeptics. But more importantly, it gave me a window into what a lot of us are hungry for in our liberal spirituality. The Bible is just one method of addressing those hungers. One of the things the Bible provides is a really substantial text. It's nice to have something to study and to push back at that has a lot of heft. It kind of reminds me of one of those 70-pound punching bags. They're so hefty that they almost invite you to walk up and take a whack at it. There's something just really satisfying about knowing the Bible has been around for so many centuries and so many people have studied it and prayed with it. Like a giant punching bag, we can give it our best shot and it's not going to go anywhere. Compare that, if you will, to the self-help section at the bookstore, or scrolling through the internet for quotes and uplifting memes. There's no comparison. And there are some brilliant, compassionate people writing today. But none of them have the type of gravitas that an ancient sacred text carries. In times of doubt or frustration, when we feel adrift, it's good to have something really heavy that can serve as an anchor. Another thing that Bible study provides is conversation partners. Typically in these groups, there's a small group that reads and discusses together. It's not up to you to find your own way alone. In addition, those people with you using the Bible, you invite in conversation partners that have been with it for hundreds of years. Those conversation partners include our UU forebearers. They include feminists. They include people of color, queer people, pacifists, and freedom fighters, all who have read and written about the Bible. In our spiritual journeys, having a conversation partner is priceless. We find in those partners affirmation that we're not alone in our ideas. We also get someone to disagree with a little bit, to help us define our own thoughts. If that's one of your hungers, to have a conversation partner in your search, please check out the Touchstones discussion groups that are launching in December. The last thing I want to bring up about the Bible, and this is true of every sacred text I know of, it doesn't flinch at the really ugly aspects of life. In our study, as we were reading the story of David and Goliath, someone commented on the way the Israelites seem to always have been in war. We quickly reminded one another of our own military involvement. I don't recall a time when the United States has not been involved in war, or at least some significant military force in some part of the world. In the 21st century, we sometimes dismiss the Old Testament as especially violent, completely denying the reality of American military force in the world. Beyond that, the Bible chews on sibling rivalries and infidelity, wealth and crushing poverty. It deals with nationalism. It deals with plagues. It tells these stories of how the prophets are called by God to tell hard truths and how they find courage to follow where their faith leads. So many challenges of imperfect people struggling to navigate a relationship with the sacred. Ancient sacred texts don't flinch at the challenges of life. And that can be so refreshing in the age of Instagram. Of course, it doesn't have to be the Bible, but connecting to a sense of tradition, an ancient source, is really helpful. Most traditions have a text, and that's a convenient point of connection. I often think of a conversation I had with Daya in her apartment, Daya Shankar, where she told us about her morning ritual and where she sat every morning to read a passage from the Bhagavad Gita as she got her day started. Or perhaps you find Buddhist teachings and tradition more your speed. Some have talked about Henry David Thoreau's Walden as an attempt to create a uniquely American scripture. Whatever the book, engaging something weighty, something with tradition, something that can hold up to our doubting and our critiques, is a really helpful pathway to accessing the sacred. There are 1,000 different practices, texts, beliefs, traditions that offer a path in our search. The question for each of us becomes, which of these stands the test of time? Which of these is sturdy enough for me to grab a hold of in both the good and the bad times of life? What's going to last? The Unitarian theologian Theodore Parker talked about it in terms of the transient and the permanent. In 1841, Theodore Parker preached the sermon titled The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity. He argued that the core of Christianity, the permanent part, was a message of loving one another and loving God. It's that simple. All the rest is extra baggage. All the rest is transient, impermanent. The sermon is interesting because he names as transient all the pieces that we usually think of as Christianity. He talks about the Bible, pointing out that it contradicts itself and that it can't possibly be considered permanent. He said that theology of the church isn't permanent either. It changes decade to decade. So how can that possibly be the permanent piece? Then he let fly the really controversial statement. I mean, this is 1841. As a Christian Unitarian, he said that even if the person of Jesus himself hadn't lived, that core message of love would still be the permanent core of Christianity. He was wildly controversial, I mean, he drew massive crowds to his church, but other Unitarians refused to invite him to speak at their churches. I bring him up today as a model in drilling down into your own faith. At some point, we all have to sort out what are the permanent pieces of what we believe and what really will last the test of time and hold up under pressure. At the end of the day, what can we place our faith in? The answer to that question might not make sense to other people. Your core beliefs might confuse or even offend others. And at a certain point, that has to be okay. We are together in one of those moments of drilling down, of seeing what beliefs sustain us through the difficulties of COVID and social distancing. Going to war is one of those moments for some people. Having children is one of those moments of defining beliefs and identifying the ones that are permanent. I had one of those moments early in my ministry, and in my first year of ministry, many moons ago, I was still in the process of becoming ordained. I had graduated from seminary with flying colors, including basically being the valedictorian of sorts of my class. I had done a full year of internship successfully. Things were smooth sailing. So I headed off to my final interview with the committee that would approve me for ordination. After an intense hour-long interview, they told me I wasn't ready and that I should come back in a year. In retrospect, I now realize that I wasn't quite ready, but at the time I was devastated. It was one of the most disappointing moments of my life, and it came from my faith tradition. So I spent the year addressing their concerns. That was helpful. But what was more helpful, what I will hold on to, was a realization that my faith is not in an institution of Unitarian Universalism. Yes, I think it's a great structure to explore and express my ideas, but it's not the object of my worship. My faith is in the beauty and wonder of creation and what I sometimes call God. This is an amazing church, our congregation, our faith tradition, the people especially who come here on Sundays and every other day of the week. The role of any religious tradition, though, is to set our sights beyond, to set our sights on higher ideals and beliefs. So the question remains, what is sturdy enough to get you out of bed in the morning when all else failed? What will be permanent for you when everything else is washed away? The sun will come up tomorrow. We have air to breathe, food to eat, and clean water to drink. We, individually and as a wider humanity, have the capacity for great ideas and deep love. That's a lot. And that is good. I also believe that something draws this crazy world toward more possibility and more diversity. I believe that goodness emerges from what seems like nothing. It doesn't happen always, but it does happen sometimes. And that's enough for me. And I hope that by listening to all that your body has to teach you, by taking a deep dive into some ancient wisdom of religious tradition, and by simply living your life, I hope that you too find what is enough. Amen.